to be open and honest with you. Half of the battle is food. It's literally 50% of the pie of what we're trying to accomplish in all of this. Our fitness and our health and our happiness is all coming from food. If we do our food right, that's half the battle. And then we got about a 20 and a 20 of stress and sleep. So if those aren't right, we're in trouble. 10% is exercise in my model. And so you're never going to out battle the 50% with the 10%. You're not going to outwork your diet. So always focus on your food first. It's the easiest thing for you to control. You're putting it in your mouth or you're not putting it in your mouth. You're making that decision every single day. The time you spend in the gym is minor in comparison. I mean,
Hi, everyone. I am Nicolette Richer, CEO and founder of the Green Mustache Holding Company, which is comprised of 5 different companies. We have a charity that works with Indigenous communities. We have, and schools, of course. We have our chain of plant-based, organic, 100% whole foods, gluten-free, vegan restaurants. We have Richer Health Consulting that brings you podcasts like this, as well as one-on-one consulting, a retreat center. We do coaching to train people on how to be nutrition and detox coaches as well. And we are here today to welcome Allan Misner, who is an author. He is a wellness coach. He has a podcast, 40 Plus Fitness. We just did a call together not too long ago, did a podcast together when I was promoting my book. And we are here today to promote his fantastic book. So the Wellness Roadmap, just give me a second here while I just go in and I'm going to read off my screen, because at the end of the day, you're going to want to know exactly who this guy is, because he's amazing. He's been doing this for a long time, helping people how to eat real to heal. You know that is the theme of our book, the title of our book, and everything we do at Richer Health. And I just want to just give kudos to Allan for all the work that he does in advancing this mission. So he's a certified personal trainer who provides powerful tools for middle-agers, people. This is who we're talking to for this podcast, and who want to live happier, healthier, and more fit lives. So Allan, welcome.
thank you. It is such an honor to be with you today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So we're going to be going through a series of questions about your book. So I loved, thank you for sending me an advanced copy. I was so excited to read it, especially after my book had just come out as well. And what I love about your book is that it is niche, definitely for those 40 plusers that are out there, which I never know if they're the new 50 plusers or 30 plusers, because at the end of the day, I can't tell what's happening with our health in the world.
Well, the base point is we want to feel younger. We want to live our lives, and we're actually realizing, well, wait, if I'm going to live till I'm 80, 90, 100 plus,
Yeah.
I want to have wonderful memories. I want to enjoy that time. And so, whereas, you used to think 65 was the oldest you'd ever get, that's not happening now. It might again if we don't take care of our health, but we have options. We have so many options in front of us to move more, to eat better, and to be happier. And we just have to seize those. And most people, as they start reaching their 40s, and we call it the midlife, then we're starting to make those choices. We're starting to turn around and say, wait. Okay, I can't be that 20-year-old, 30-year-old. I'm now in my 40s and myself in my 50s. I have to be smarter.
Right.
And fortunately, we have the wisdom to be smarter. So I put this book out there to kind of teach people a roadmap, if you will, of how they can get the information that they need to build that smarter path.
Right. And I love that it is a roadmap, because at the end of the day, we have so many people who are looking for like the one hit wonder. They're looking for the one pill that's going to do it all. Like maybe it's the cookbook. If they buy that cookbook, they'll start cooking healthier. And in this roadmap, I mean, I love that you talk about, you talk about persistence. You talk about the fact that you do have to work hard at this. You're going to have to do some preliminary work as well, particularly to understanding like what is your why for getting healthy. And I think that is so important. I mean, when you're an entrepreneur, you have to know the why for your business, but of course you have to apply that same mentality to the why for doing anything, for getting healthy. We're going to talk about habits after this, but if you can jump into the why part, and if you can tell us the story about, from reading your book, I get the sense that your why was your daughter. Would you say that's correct?
Yes.
And could you tell us?
It was. I've got to go back just a little to kind of talk about, okay, I grew up feeling like I was an athlete. I always doing different athletic things, running this or doing that, playing football, running up to running ultra marathons, up to playing semi-pro volleyball.
Mhm.
And I was 39 years old down in Mexico. I was doing really well with my career, but the rest of my life was not
Mhm.
well. I was unhappy, I was unfit, and I was unhealthy.
And can you tell us
And
why or how you got into that place? Like being, because a lot of us, I mean, I played tennis in the States and I played collegiate tennis at a varsity, level university. I was fit, I was healthy, but can you, a lot of us have been
well,
athletes, and then tell us what happened. How did you get to
and this is, and I'm not going to say this is just a male thing because it can go both ways. But I think for men, we often think, well, I'm the breadwinner. That's my job now. I'm married, got a kid. I'm supposed to be providing. So I need to have the career track. I need to be pushing myself on that path. The problem was I got so singular focused on the path
yeah,
that I built a great career. I was really, really good at what I did. And I was very successful, which is why I was able to buy a timeshare in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico at an all inclusive resort where I went and said, okay, I have to take a vacation. I'm working, I actually was working for a timeshare company at the time. And I said, I need to go somewhere where I can actually relax and get myself back together. And I was sitting there and they had sand volleyball on the daily activities list when we checked in. I'm like, oh my God, this is where I'm supposed to be. I want to go play sand volleyball in the morning. It's been 10 years, 15 years since I've played. So I went out there and started playing. And 2 games in, I was so out of breath and my heart was beating so fast. I was like, I got to stop. So I subbed out, and that's not me. I mean, I just like, okay, what happened to me?
mhm,
And so I kind of made that decision there. I'm like, I've got to fix this. And I took a picture of myself and I shared it in the book. It's not flattering. Don't ever do a profile picture of your whole body uh, without a shirt if you don't want to see a real picture of who you are as a human being, because the pictures I put in the book are not flattering at all. I'm not happy about that moment in my life, but I recognize that moment was a pivotal point in my journey.
yeah,
Now, you flash forward 8 years later, which is what I'm trying to help with this book, is how can I shorten that 8 years to something much shorter for you?
yeah,
Because it took me 8 years to put this all together. When I'm laying in a hotel room, I was actually in Malaysia, and I was hungover and fat and unhappy and unhealthy. And I'd had a conversation with my daughter the day before, and she was just so excited about CrossFit and this little thing they were going to do as a competition thing. And I was thinking, I'm watching my daughter be the person I was and the person I want to be.
right,
And I'm watching and I'm not participating. So while she's excited to tell me about it and I'm excited to hear about it, I'm like, I'm losing a part of me that I really don't want to lose. And
yeah,
that's the life with my daughter, me being able to be there with her. So it was kind of at that moment that I went ahead and said, my why is not just my daughter. I want to live longer for her, but it's like, I want to actually be in the game with her. I want to be able to walk into a CrossFit and do a CrossFit workout with her. I want to be able to go into a mud run with her. I want to do these things. Now, that morphed over the next 2.5 years to where I said, okay, we're going to do a Tough Mudder, which is a 12-mile run through the mud with obstacles, completely crazy, but fun when you have the physical conditioning to do it. So it was a slow 8 years of almost nothing, no benefit at all, up and down, up and down, up and down. And then all of a sudden it's like click. I have a why and I have a vision.
right.
And
And
then
you
11
have
months later,
principles and
yeah,
values, right? Principles and
yes,
values. Like you
yeah.
valued family time, it sounds like, with your daughter as well.
But
And
not just sitting in the stands watching
yeah,
her.
exactly.
No, I wanted to be on the ground with her, and hanging with her. And I can tell you right now, I still have that same passion that when my grandchildren, which we only have one right now, but when they're old enough to be able to do whatever crazy thing they're going to be, I mean, because we didn't fathom mud runs when I was a kid, whatever they're going to be doing as they grow up, I want to be there. Unless it's a video game tournament, then no, I'll just sit and watch. But if they're out there doing something crazy and fun. I want to be a part of it. I don't want to just be a spectator.
Exactly. And that piece, I think, about a lot of us, I think, in this day and age, but with all the apps that are out there and everything is online, we have become spectators. One of the stats that I heard is that just recently is more and more people now, more than ever before, actually eat out, and they're eating fast food. So maybe fast casual. It
Yeah.
might be a little bit better than, the McDonald's and KFC. I don't know if you have KFC down there. Maybe a little bit better,
Marginally.
but not much better. But despite all the food porn that's out there, despite all the cookbooks, despite all of the tools that we have to teach us how to eat well or how to exercise well or how to be mindful, we have people more than ever who are actually doing the opposite. And I don't know if it's because we've moved into being a spectator, like a person who sits on the bleachers and watches the Olympics, as opposed to wanting to strive to be, in the Olympics or, participating in the sport. And I know your book gives you that roadmap to transition people out of the bleachers and onto the playing field, which is what I absolutely love. So you also did Tough Mudder as well, right?
Yes.
And had you ever done anything like that before?
Well, my daughter and I did we went out and I did it's a warrior dash, which is like a 5K. And then, so sort of the same thing, but much, much easier. And we had done one and then we did another one. There's pictures in the book to show you each of the pictures from those.
I saw that.
But I was sitting there in March, and my daughter and I had such a good time doing this little mud run thing. It was a 5K mud run thing, and at that point, I was fit enough to do that, but was not anywhere near the condition I needed to be the person I wanted to be. And I just said to her, I said, we should do something tougher, and let's do a tough mudder. And so this was March when I'm sitting at probably at that point about maybe 235, and I'm only 5'11. So I mean, that's a lot of weight for my body where I was. And so I said, okay, well, let's do a tough mudder. And she said, okay. So I signed us up for the tough mudder. I went ahead, I applied. I just put the money in. I'm like, okay, I'm pot in. I'm paying for it. And I started training. And I knew I needed to build strength to be able to do the obstacles. I needed endurance to be able to go the 12 miles and keep the energy up the whole time. And I needed to lose some body fat, not from the perspective of that I wanted to look like anything,
Yeah.
but it's just that's extra weight I got to carry 12 miles and it's not doing me any good. So I need to kind of get rid of that too. And I changed the way I ate. I'm not going to say I went vegan or vegetarian or anything like that. Everybody has to pick their own eating style that
Yeah.
fits what their needs are. But you experiment with that and you figure out the kind of things that actually work for you. I lost another basically 35 pounds
It's a lot.
in 11 months. I remember my daughter getting off the plane and she's like, "You got skinny." Um,
Who would want to
and
hear
then,
that?
yeah, well, yeah. But the more important thing was, okay, and as we were coming up on the finish, and at the end of the Tough Mudder, one of the things about the Tough Mudder is they like you get in cold water, or get electricity, and that kind of stuff. They play with stuff like that. So the last one of the next to the last obstacle was this electric cable thing. So there's all these little wires hanging from this thing, and you're supposed to run through it. Now there's electricity running through those. So we come up and there's all these grown men. I mean, they're in their 20s and 30s, just buff men just standing there looking at this thing with trepidation, just terrified. And I told my daughter, I said, just run around them. She's like, what? I said, we're not going to wait. We're just going to go. And we ran around. So she ran around one end. We met in the middle, grabbed hands, and we ran through those wires together. And yes, I almost fell, but I kept going. They had watched so many people fall face first, try to get up, fall down again. And so they were all terrified.
Yeah.
My daughter and I ran through it. We made it through it. We finished the race. And, again, that was my celebration. That was the image of me, the vision of what I wanted to be when I first started this trek.
And it's so
I got,
important to have that at the beginning, right? When you're doing
yeah,
anything, is you have to look forward and be like, what is it that I want to step into? What's that outcome I want to achieve? What's it going to look like, taste like, feel like? Now, some people might have thought like, hey, you know what? You probably had a really good relationship with your daughter. So it was really easy for you to be like, yeah, let's just do this together. Not everybody has those close relationships. And how old was your daughter at the time?
she was 20.
Yeah. Okay. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that's one of those ages, where,
It is.
you
It
just come
is.
out of teenagehood. So, I mean,
Okay.
what's the relationship like before, and how is it now as a result of you, that being your why and you doing these activities with your daughter?
Well, my daughter still now thinks of me the way she did. Not necessarily, okay, not necessarily the same way. I mean, when you're first a parent, you're invincible. Your kid thinks you're the Superman and all of that. And yes, I was daddy's girl because I only had a daughter at the time. So of course I was daddy's girl. I had to be.
Yeah.
So we had that going on. I felt like I was able to be daddy's girl again
Mm,
all over again. And I know that's, it is what it is. And maybe you don't have that kind of relationship, but I could equate this to a whole different age, the way I'm looking at things now.
yeah.
I want to be able to wipe my own butt when I'm 105.
Me too.
Okay. As we get older, we're watching our parents or maybe grandparents, if you're lucky enough to still have them around, lose their independence.
Yeah.
And they're losing their independence because, well, the dementia is part of it, but I think that's diet related in many, many cases.
Yes, I agree.
There's more and more evidence to show that that's self-inflicted. We have people falling. Stats are when you're over 65, you're more likely to fall than almost not. And
Exactly.
when you do fall, it's hospitalization, and people who break their hips are dead within a year.
Yeah.
The numbers are staggering. In the United States, 29,000 people a year die from falls
It's terrible.
over the age. And so it's a leading killer for people over the age of 65. And a lot of people
And
don't
it's
know that.
preventable. That's the
Yes.
part, is that there's so many tools and to preventing those falls, like everything
Yeah.
from diet and just how we, exercise and just, proprioception exercises and that's the sad thing is that 29,000 deaths a year that are preventable.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as I look at it and say, okay, if you're looking for a why, you want to be independent.
Yeah.
So you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 30s, 20, wherever you are, just realize that you have the capacity right now to stay independent longer by starting the trek today. Be it the food you choose, the exercises you do, and don't think of them as exercise, think of them as training.
Yes.
And so you can laugh at yourself and saying, I'm training to be able to wipe my butt when I'm 105 by doing side shuffles and body weight squats. But that's exactly the things that you won't be able to do when you're 105 if you're not doing them today.
Exactly. And, that really makes me think about you have this, as we call it a system, I guess it's called the GPS,
Yes.
which is an acronym. The first one is grounding, and I'll get you to talk about that in a minute. The second one is personalization, but the third one is self awareness. And that's the part where, and I don't know if you agree with me on this one, but I wonder in this day and age how much self awareness people have. We're so influenced by the stuff we see on social media that sometimes I wonder if people are losing touch with that. So what I'd love you to do is, number one, talk about that part of GPS and then go
Yeah.
backwards and talk about the personalization and the grounding. But also if you can give some more examples of people's why, because I think it'll actually help. A lot of people will not, I know a lot of audience members are going to be like, that is such a brilliant idea. Exercise with my kids and, train with my kids. And it accomplishes many, many things. It's that keeping a strong body so you can wipe your butt when you're 107. It's developing an intimate, deep relationship with your child that you might be craving and need to rekindle. You're getting fit so that you can run around with your grandkids. It might be to reverse heart disease. It might be, there's so many different whys, but you've worked with so many people, right? Like you're a coach and you worked with people who've been in bad states when they've come to
Yes.
you. So can you share some of the examples of the whys that have motivated them and also how you help them to discover their why? I think that's another piece.
Okay. Well, again, we're going to start with the self-awareness. So we're going to work backwards through this thing. I decided I wanted to get in shape. I was watching Sunday morning TV. I was traveling a whole lot. I mean, a whole lot, like 90%. And I was like flipping channels between Face the Nation and infomercials, and the insanity videos came up with Sean T. And he is fit as anybody you'd ever care to see. Really nice guy, just someone who's very motivating. And I'm like, I love this video. I love it already, and I'm watching people behind him and they're doing their thing. And I'm like, and they're not using weights. I said, this is better than P90X. It's better than anything else I've ever seen. I'm going to buy this video set. So I'm on the phone ordering the DVD set. So it kind of dates me a little bit. Yes, it was a DVD set. Um,
Good.
so I get the DVD set and I, clear the couch out, and I go to do the benchmark test. It's just the test, the fitness test at the beginning. And I do the fitness test and I push myself through the fitness test. And the very next morning, I'm laying in my bed, and it really feels like someone had strapped me to the bed and beat me with a baseball bat.
I know that feeling.
I'm just hurting so bad. I actually had to call in sick for work,
Wow.
because I couldn't see myself at work. It was done. And so what I had not done was I didn't have the self-awareness to know that I had physical limitations,
Yeah.
that at, 45 years old, which I think I was at the time, I just wasn't capable of doing what Shaun T was asking me to do. I had not built myself up to that point. So having an understanding of what your physical limitations and capacities are is very important. So do some testing, do some things to understand, okay, if I've been completely sedentary, I can't expect to run a 5K next weekend.
Yeah. And
I've got to
I've made
figure
that
out.
mistake so many times because I actually, and I'm sure a lot of people do, I mean, even though our body's aging, our mind is kind of still a 24-year-old or,
Yes, it
it's
is.
weird. So I still see myself as
17 for me, but
17, right, exactly. And so I still see myself as this fit climber and a tennis player and, and a runner. And I used to run miles. And then I'll go out there and be like, 17K, that's easy. And then pull out my hip and then can't run for 3 more months. So it's really imperative that people do that baseline assessment once they want to get back into it. And
yes,
it's data collection, right? Like you're just like, hey,
it
I just
is.
want to find out where I am today.
So, and that's the whole point with the GPS. You have to know, if you want to know where you're going to go, you got to know where you are.
Exactly.
So let's let the computer, let your computer, your brain tell you, where am I today, really?
Yeah.
So that I can make the best first step. Now, the next one is harder. The mental limitations and capacities are a little harder to figure out because that's reflective. That's something that's really hard for us to wrap our minds around. So, perfect example, and I use this in the book. I used to live in a place in Arkansas that they had this thing called spud nuts. And it was basically donuts made with potato flour. So potatoes are already the most high GI thing you can put in your mouth, practically. And now they've made flour out of it, which just, I can't even believe, I can't even imagine today what that did to my blood sugar when I ate a spud nut. But it's basically a donut made from potato flour,
Deep fried?
deep fried,
Okay.
delicious. But again, complete poison.
Yeah.
But they were so good that when they brought them to the office, it was like sharks chumming. It's just everybody's on them, and so I just realized, okay, that's something I can't be around. I can't say no when I'm around it, so I have to understand myself
Right.
to say that's a limitation. I can't go in the break room if spud nuts are in there,
Yeah.
even if I want to go get a water. I know on Fridays they typically bring spud nuts, so let's bring a big bottle of water to work because I don't want to go in the break room until they've cleared out the spud nuts.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing too, because it really speaks to the, in whether for you it was an addiction or not, but our animal brain, I mean, it craves things and it's
Yeah,
wanting them now. And so you have to know what those we'll call it a weakness, but it's because it's not our will, it's not our own self that's making, it's actually this animalistic part of our brain that wants that and actually will do everything to force your physical body to go and grab it. So if you
right.
know that mine used to be salt and vinegar chips, so I get it. So if they're in the house, I will literally, beat you up to go get them. If you're trying to withhold them from me. So, I mean, you have to know what those are. And then what you do is just similar to what an alcoholic would do. It's like, there's no alcohol in the house. There's, I stay away from bars while I'm trying to sober up, and maybe for the rest of your life. You have to treat it like an addiction, and you have that self-awareness is critical.
Yeah. And so you get that kind of self-awareness, and that really is going to help you going forward because now you know where you're starting from. And all the things that you do, the strategies and tactics you choose are going to then kind of have that bit of a base that's going to help you stay the course and
Right.
get back on course when you need to.
Yeah.
So the personalization, I look at it from this perspective. You and I might work at the same office, but we live in different parts of town. So your route to work is going to be very different from my route to work. I might have further to travel than you do. So we might have the same vision of what we want to do. You and I decide, hey, we're going to do this Spartan race, Spartan Super in Toronto in 9 months time. But you might be closer to being able to do it. So your training is going to be potentially very different than my training. So you go through this whole point of personalization. You say, okay, well, 90% of the people that walk in and talk to me is they want to be a client, they want to lose weight.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, well, weight is actually just a side effect of being healthy. So let's not focus on the weight. Let's focus on, the girth of your stomach. Let's focus on how fast you can move a mile. Let's focus on what your blood work looks like. Let's focus on your energy level and how you feel when you wake up in the morning and how well you're sleeping, what your stress level is. If we get those things going, the weight loss is really just, like I said, a side effect. So by having multiple measures that are not necessarily easiest, weight's the easiest. You step on a scale, it tells you win or fail.
Yeah.
And we look at it that way. We feel that way about ourselves. And that's a terrible, terrible thing to have when you like step on the scale and it tells you you failed because you didn't lose any weight today. But then you go to the doctor and get a blood test and your cholesterol numbers and your triglycerides and your blood sugar and everything's looking brilliant. You're completely healthy. And then you're realizing I just PR'd on my 5K.
Yeah.
There's other health markers out there that you want to wrap your mind around. So the personalization, or what are the things that matter to you that you can measure besides weight that will
I
tell
know.
you you're on track?
And it's such a hard one because at the end of the day, I know with my clients, like they come to me with chronic disease, they need surgery, they've been on terrible meds, they're in chronic pain. And for them, their life is actually on the line. And so we teach them how to do this metabolic nutritional therapy. You guys can listen to the podcast that Allan and I did for his podcast, to learn what that entails. We do eat a lot of potatoes, by the way, but they're never deep fried. They're always, and it's really for the
Yeah.
potassium and nutrient source that are in there to restore that nutritional deficiency. But the byproduct of doing this therapy is you lose weight. If you have weight to gain, you'll gain it. So people who are underweight, and if you have weight to lose, you lose it, even though you're eating almost 6,000 calories a day, which debunks the whole caloric myth. But I see it with my clients. They're the most excited. Like they've just overcome a chronic disease, but guess what? They're most excited by the fact that they lost weight. And if I were to sell it as a weight loss program, everybody would do it. But it is, we have to look beyond that, and your book helps. It gives lots of examples of how people can look beyond just the weight loss for those other motivators, right, and allow those
Yeah.
other things to be the driving forces, which are such a better indicator of health, like low cholesterol levels, low, I mean, all of them, great heart rate, everything is a you have to consider much more sophisticated measures than just weight
Yeah.
loss, which doesn't tell
Everybody
you
loves
anything.
everybody loves a simple thing. Everybody loves calories in, calories out.
Yeah,
Look at the scale. That's a single number.
yeah,
But life is, our bodies are so much more complex than that. It
exactly.
has to go further than that, or you're missing the big picture of health.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then to take you back to GPS, I mean
Yeah.
to the G in GPS.
Personalization,
Okay,
self-awareness,
so
and then G is
G
grounding.
is the grounding. Okay, grounding is the most important part because grounding is where you're deciding where you want to go and why. Okay, I went on to Google and I keyed in Philadelphia because a colleague I worked with was from Philadelphia, and I just wanted to know how long would it take for me to drive to Philadelphia. It was 17 hours. Okay, I would have to have a pretty compelling why to drive to Philadelphia. And, you know, uh, it's a distance. And I think if you don't look at this as a long-term journey, because health is, you're always going to have things happening. Things are going to be going good and things are going to be going bad. And you're going to have family issues. You're going to have these other things. So it's a long journey that we start ourselves on to say, I want to be as well as I can be. And so we want to sit down and put up a vision in front of ourselves that, one, we know is overall attainable in our entire lives.
Yeah.
But the other side of it is we have to have a really good reason for why. And so I'll give you a couple. I had a guest on the podcast. His name was Todd. Now, Todd had two little girls and his wife. and Todd ended up in the hospital for what he thought was just an infection.
Mm.
And as the doctors got in there and started looking him over, they found problem after problem after problem until the doctor walked into the hospital room and his daughters are sitting there with his wife and says, "You're going to be dead in 6 months if you don't change something." Todd is like 600 pounds
Yeah.
and he's looking at his daughters who can't even look up at him. And he's realizing this is the father they're going to remember.
Yeah.
And they're not going to have pictures because I've never really let myself be in pictures. And they're not going to have a father if I don't do something. Now, that why is a slap you in the face why.
Yeah.
And Todd did brilliant things. He lost over 323 pounds in 5 years.
Wow.
Still an entirely different man. Now, he still had a long way to go, and he recognized it's a long journey. He didn't get to almost 600 pounds overnight, and it's going to take him a little while to get there. So he was working and still working. And then you have just other folks where a good friend I trained, his name is John, and he and his wife wanted to move up to Tennessee in the mountains. They love hiking through the mountains and just enjoy that part of the country. But their big concern was, John had a bad knee and she wasn't that healthy, and they're both, overweight, and just didn't. They knew they didn't have the capacity to be able to, do the hiking and things they wanted to do. So they wanted to do something about it. I brought them on as clients. And I said, okay, but I'm only going to take you if I can have both of you. I'm not going to take John. I'm going to take both of you. And we started working. Now, all I did is very, very simple. I got him on whole food.
Yeah.
I got him focused on whole food. I got him on moving a little bit more. Now, for John, it was kind of easy. We worked through his knee problems. As soon as he cut out the sugar and I got him to moving right, got him good movement patterns, John was fine. He could do squats, he could do everything. And his results were fantastic. In 10 weeks, he lost 39 pounds. Tammy had some back problems. As a result, she couldn't do the exercising, so she had to focus. We focused on her food, which actually helped John because, John was cooking the food, and she could only focus on the food. So as a result, she lost 28 pounds.
Yeah.
So it's not, like you said, it's not a calories in, calories out thing. It's a personalization. It's an understanding. It's an experimentation. And it starts from having an idea of what you want, your vision, and your why. John wanted to have that lifestyle with his wife. Todd wanted to be there for his children and just to be alive for his children. I wanted to be an athlete and enjoy the things my children and grandchildren want to do. So your why could be entirely different. Whys are deep, they're emotional, and generally they're fixed. Now, I after I did that Tough Mudder, I did get married. And so I have an extended now 3 more kids. So there's 4 kids and my wife.
Fantastic.
And, the 2 of us now, we're going to move down to Panama because our kids are out of the house. So the 2 of us are going to go down to Panama and have a very active lifestyle down there, eating local food, locally grown food, locally sourced food, because they don't have a McDonald's on the island. They don't. they don't have a green mustache either. But so
we'll get one there. You can get one there.
But they don't have any fast food on the island. It's it's locally sourced foods. So it's going to be a brilliant place for us to be. It's on the Caribbean with no hurricanes. So it's a lifestyle choice because for me, when we talk about the personalization, what are the things that are my holdback? My holdback was stress.
Yeah.
And so I was working a very stressful job, and you can get the book and read some of the most stressful moments you're going to have as an executive in a business. I had them.
Potent stories. Read them. Yeah.
And I knew when I got laid off, the last guy walking out the door, being laid off from this group, I was like, I don't ever want to sit at a desk like that again. I don't want to be the guy who tells someone this is your last day. Yeah. I don't want to hear the word head count and know that this person just signed a mortgage 3 months ago. Yeah. I don't want to be that guy. So I chose not to. Now that took some major sacrifices in other parts of my life, but I've decided that that's the most healthful, happy, fit thing I can do for myself. And I made that tough choice. And I don't expect everyone to be able to distance themselves from stress when stress is their problem, but just recognize that there are solutions that will bring you closer,
Yeah.
and you just have to constantly be looking for those ways that are going to improve your health and fitness and wellness, and get you moving in the right direction.
And I think the biggest thing that you said there is that you made a choice. You know, you were active in co-creating with your partner also this future lifestyle of yours, like when you do move there. But you know, when it comes to health, when it comes to wellness, I mean, it's looking at the limitations. So sometimes it's our community that's a limitation. And I'm actually starting to realize that now, being in Whistler, British Columbia, it's like minus something degrees and I'm freezing. I just came back from Africa and I was like thriving in the sun. And, you know, and I've been able to make it work. And it actually has been completely fine. Like I have to go above and beyond to make sure that, you know, I'm doing all the things that make me happy in this cold community. And then I love it, of course. But you know, it actually made me realize I don't want to spend all my energy having to stay warm. I'd rather, you know, and so now we're thinking about the future, and you know, my husband as well is thinking about that. But at the end of the day, you can change communities. You can change countries. You can change jobs. You can even change relationships. I mean, it sounds like you were divorced. I was divorced. And, you know, sometimes when a relationship isn't working, it isn't serving you and your, you know, your highest self, you can make those changes as well, especially after you've like lived through the stress of trying to make it work. And then you just realize, you know what, you can't. Then you can make those active choices. And of course, there's always going to be trade offs, right? Like there's trade offs to leaving a relationship, there's trade offs to moving communities, and there's trade offs to, you know, going and moving on to an island. I think all of those trade offs for Panama is pretty great. I'm join you. I'll be your next door neighbor. But yeah, but you can make those big choices as well. It's about making small choices, and sometimes it's about making the big ones. And you're both
Well, the woman that owns the Indian restaurant on the island, she's from Canada, so you'll have a fellow Canadian on the island there.
fantastic.
But no, I know that's not an easy choice. Elimination is one of the ways that you can get rid of stress. Elimination is a way to really get rid of stress. It's the hardest,
Yeah,
because change is that hard. So if that's not available to you, some distance, getting some environments where you feel safe and protected, so
yeah,
you can at least break away for periods of time
yeah,
and let that stress not be there for that period of time, which I know is very, very hard to do, but that's kind of alternative two. And then the other alternatives are, okay, we've got to come up with some stress techniques to deal with the day-to-day stuff that's going to happen. So, during the period of time, my last job, we were going through layoffs, the phone would ring and it'd be my boss. I could see his name on the screen. I'm like, ugh. So yeah, immediately you feel like, ugh. And then, so it's like, okay, I can't run to the gym and work this cortisol adrenal thing out. I've got this thing going on. I'm about to get in an elevator and go up and see him. I just started a breathing technique on the
yeah,
elevator. Now I could have gone up the steps, but I would have gotten up the steps faster. So I needed the elevator to do the breathing. So whatever yours is, it might be just do the steps if that works for you. I would get on the elevator and just close my eyes and start breathing. By the
exactly.
time the elevator door opened up to take me 2 floors up, I'd step off the elevator and let all that bad feelings go out. And I'd walk into his office and smile and say, "What's up, John?"
Yeah,
And, take whatever the news was of the day with whatever was there. And so, there are techniques and ways for you to deal with the things that are affecting you. But your health
yeah,
affects not just you, it affects everyone around you. And I don't
exactly.
I don't know if I can use this word. You can bleep it out if you want, but when I was unfit, unhappy, and unhealthy, I was a fat bastard.
Yeah,
I was not a nice person to
yeah,
be around. And I recognized that. And it took me a while to turn that around to where I can say, look, my inward reflection of how I treat myself
yeah,
is affecting how I'm treating others. And I
yeah.
don't want to be that person.
So Yeah, I love everything you said just there. So one of the things I definitely want you to touch on, and I know you have a wonderful story in the book about this, but how do you stay committed? Like, so you know your why, you have the self-awareness, you set the goals, and you then have to leave your safe haven where like everything is planned out, the route from work to home and picking up the kids is all there, and you know where your eating habits are, and where your exercise routine is. But what do you do when you're on the road traveling? And I'm on the road a lot. So how do you explain, and the book explained as well, but how do you stick with your routine while you're traveling and stay motivated while you're traveling?
Well, it's going to come down to strategies. And so, we it's easy for us to create habits when we're at home. The gym is close to my office or close to home, or in my case, it was both.
Yeah,
So I made sure I had a gym close to my office and close to home. So I never had an excuse not to work out.
yeah,
So I set a bunch of little things in place around where I was, my normal routine, where it just was automatic. Everything just was automatic. The food in my fridge was food I could eat.
yeah,
There wasn't any food in my house that I couldn't eat. There wasn't anything I didn't have to question or think about anything, because everything was just sort of, that's just what we do. Now, yes, now I get on the road, and I've been someone who's traveled as much as 90% out of the year, which means just even a weekend at home was I felt good. I'd actually sit and watch TV because I felt okay about taking a weekend off when I'd been traveling that much. So what it comes down to is, okay, one, you still have to keep that grounding in your head. Your why and your vision are still there. They don't go away just because you go away.
yeah,
They're coming with you. So do a little bit of research. Take some time and say, okay, I'm traveling to this city. I'm staying in a hotel. What gyms are in the hotels or associated with the hotels? Don't be afraid to call the hotel and just say, hey, I'm coming down for 2 weeks. I noticed you have a little fitness center there. Do you have any local gym memberships or complimentary passes to get me into another gym close by?
right,
And what healthy food options are available? So if you're vegan, you say, what healthy vegan food options are available to me close to the hotel? And they'll be willing to tell you.
yeah,
Dr. Google, will do the same thing. They'll give you some information. So you just start taking down addresses and locations and kind of understand, okay, there's variety, there's an opportunity here. There's going to be times when you realize, okay, whoa, I'm traveling to a place where that's just not functionally going to work for me. Guess what? You're limited to liquids you can have in your bag. You're not limited to vegetables and meat.
right,
So you can pack food in your luggage. You'll get weird looks at TSA, but
yeah,
just bear with it, and say, okay, so I know, okay, when I'm going to travel and I'm going to be somewhere where I might struggle to have the kind of meals I would want to have, I'll pack some nuts, I'll pack some sardines, I'll pack some, apples or other things that I can have with me that are just going to be ready snacks. And so then I'm not in a position where I'm worried about a meal.
exactly. And I
You
think
know?
the piece that you said, so being proactive, definitely. I mean, that is
Yeah.
a given. You have to be proactive. I learned about the therapy I teach from, and he was, at the time, he was 72 years old, and he used to drive across the United States back and forth. I mean, multiple, dozens and dozens of times a year, public speaking. And he had to do this therapy, the Gerson therapy. And so he had to just call ahead, and he would just call ahead to the Whole Foods and say, get all of these ingredients ready. And he would go in and pay and pick up the box already done. So being proactive, I think, is also like that's a given for sure. And so you're going to have to do it, people. Like Alan's book says, I mean, there's going to be some work involved in here. This isn't a one pill solution. It's a roadmap. It's a wellness map. And then, but the piece that I love that you said is, you know what, if you don't have a disease and you don't have, it's not so critical that every, ounce of food that goes into your body, which is curative for medicine, you can also just take a break. You don't have to you can skip a meal. Fasting is not bad, but don't um, beat yourself up. And if you have to take a break from your exercise as well, don't beat yourself up from it. Just be like, hey, I'm taking a rest for these 3 days. Whereas I think we tend to do the opposite. We're like, oh, I had all these intentions while traveling of like eating perfectly and exercising perfectly and not getting off my routine. But sometimes we also just need a break as well. And so when you're traveling, I mean, you can do that. as well. And you can substitute, maybe you substitute mindfulness for that rigorous exercise, or maybe you'll substitute stretching, or great sex even, like, you
Yeah.
know what, take some time off and, you know, have great sex with
Only
your
if you're
husband
traveling with your significant other,
when you're
but
traveling with your
yeah,
significant
yeah,
other. Yes.
yeah.
Um,
But and so yeah, and I think you're right on that. Is just realize, okay, when we start talking about fitness, and I really want to emphasize this with folks is fitness. Even though CrossFit says they're crowning the fittest man and woman on earth,
mhm,
your definition of fitness doesn't have to equal that. My definition of fitness means I want to be fit to do the things I want to do.
yeah,
And it could be very different from your level of fitness. As I get older, my level of fitness and what I'm looking at is different. So I could say, I'm going to spend time in my hotel room working on balance and
exactly.
mobility. And so I pack a roller or a softball even
Mhm,
to basically work uh, my calves and my hip flexors and my back and just try to get myself more flexible, more mobile. And I work on my balance in my hotel room because they just don't have a gym available
yeah,
and I can't get out, or I just don't have the time. It's like, getting out and going to a gym and coming back. I've done that. I've hired a taxi to take me 15 miles to just go to a gym
yeah,
because that was the closest gym to the hotel I was staying at. And it's fine. I got it done. It was $30 each way. Um,
mhm,
but I got it done. And I'm not saying you have to do that, but just realize there are other fitness modalities. There are other things you can focus on during that period of time, be it stress, sleep,
yeah,
uh, other fitness modalities. And then don't be afraid to experiment with food because you might go into a restaurant and try a local dish and realize that, heck, I love turmeric
mhm.
and I'm going to put more turmeric in my food going forward because it's such a wonderful flavor.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah, flexibility is definitely, no pun intended, but so important when we have, um, when life just takes us to other places, when we don't get to stay in our cocoon and have everything, scheduled in our calendar perfectly. And so, traveling, having kids as well, is another time when, all of a sudden our schedules and our routine all of a sudden become vastly different. And so, exercising with your kids, I mean, I think we talked about that at the beginning, right, is, and it's something that you can do, and sometimes it's not always a pleasant experience until you develop a way of doing it. I know when I used to try and do yoga with my kids, they'd be crawling all over me, and then
that's fun. That's
that's
fun.
really fun.
I had a client, Sandra, and she was a grandmother, and she said she's trying to babysit her grandchild, and she said she's exhausted after just a few hours. And I'm like, okay, well, here's what I want you to do. I want you to get down on the floor with your grandchild
Yeah,
over this weekend. I said, just do this. I said, get down on the floor with them when they're on the floor. When they get up, you get up. I said, this is going to make you very tired. I said, but after you do this a few times, you're going to condition yourself, and then you're not going to be nearly as tired taking care of your grandchild. So just sitting down and saying, okay, I'm going to condition myself to be the person that I want to be, this vision of myself.
yeah,
The grandchild sitting on the floor is your why. You should not want a distance relationship of you sitting in a chair watching them sit on the floor.
yeah.
You should want, and when you sit on the floor, it's going to change their lives.
Mhm.
When all the other parents are sitting in, all the other adults they see are sitting in chairs and you're on the floor playing with them, your relationship is going to be so much fuller that it's just going to blow your heart out. I mean, it's just going to be beautiful.
Yeah, I think that, I love that. Envisioning the person that you want to be. Who do you want to be? The person who sits in the chair and watches from a distance, the observer on the bleachers, or do you want to be an active participant in life, being able to keep up with your loved ones, being able to keep up with your community members and neighbors, and your partner as well. I figure you're going to have a run for your money with your partner when you guys move to Panama, and fitness is, like, and I get that there's probably, and it's good to have a competitive streak too. Like, that can be your why. Like, I'm a
You
bit
can.
competitive. So, and I love it because now my kids are climbing and they're doing yoga. And, if my daughter can hold a pose for 2 minutes, plank pose for 2 minutes, I'm like, I want to hold that for 2 minutes too. And my why is this: I want to beat her because, you know what? She's this healthy, fit, vibrant. And so she's that healthy, fit, and vibrant. And I can hold my plank for 2 minutes. It's going to mean I'm healthy, fit and vibrant. And so, I'm competitive, and I know that about myself, and it's actually, to use that as a gift and a tool and an asset is incredible.
Well, that's where we were talking when I was talking about the self-awareness and the mental side, what your capacity is and what are the things that are going to drive you. And you're right. I'm a very competitive person. I did not want my daughter waiting for me
Yeah,
in a tough mutter. So I had to be at a given physical condition, being 25 years older than her,
yeah,
to finish the race. So it was is that kind of mindset of saying, I don't want to be the one they're waiting on. I don't want to be, I want to be with them. Now, I didn't want to beat my daughter
yes,
per se, but I did not want her to wait for me,
yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah. No, not be my daughter, but it's nice when you set this challenge and you're like, if I can do that, then I can always do more too, which is the exciting thing
yes.
about it because
And but I also want to go from the I do need to put this out there. We just realize, okay, my step was I wanted something pretty fantastical.
mhm,
Not many 45-year-olds need to be running tough mutters. So
yeah,
I don't want to put that out there that should be your vision. Your vision can just be your ability to walk through the zoo with your grandchild as they run from the giraffes to the lions, and you just want to make sure you're not losing sight of them or having to sit on the bench and everybody leave you behind. So it doesn't have to be this ultra competitive huge thing. It can just be being the grandma that your grandchild deserves, or being the grandfather that your grandchild deserves, or being independent as long as you can so your kids don't have the burden of either having to care for you directly or hire somebody or put you, somewhere at a very high expense rate. You want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself to be the best you can possibly be under your current circumstances.
yeah. Alan, you've said everything so well. It's perfect. And you've given people so many tools to be able to just get started. I'm going to get my hands on this, on your book, which I can't wait to get the physical copy because it's nice to have the advanced digital copy. We can't wait to promote that for you. Can you tell people where they can order your book from?
Okay, it's available on Amazon. You can also go to Barnes and Nobles or any other bookstore and ask them to order it for you. So you can go on there online or whatnot. Primarily most people go to Amazon to buy books. So I get that. You can go to Amazon, but even your local indie bookstore can order this book for you if you want to support your local indie, which you should.
Yeah,
They're working hard. And then, they can go to wellnessroadmapbook.com and just learn more about the book and more about me. And then I do the 40 Plus Fitness podcast. So they can look for me there if you're over 40 and you want a coach or someone that's just literally, I just like I am on this podcast, I'm that guy who is going to be that cheerleader, just tough enough to keep you moving forward, but not so tough that you feel like, oh my God, this guy's going to kill me. I'm going to push you as hard as you need to be pushed. And I do that through the podcast and I do it through training. But I'm available to help anyone that wants to find wellness in their form and their vision.
that's incredible. So we will have all the links below so that you can just click on them and access, all of the great information that Alan puts out there. And again, with working with Alan, like choose Alan because of the fact that he's not just a trainer and coach who's going to be like, get out there and do 20 push-ups, but he's going to actually start with, creating the habits and, helping you understand yourself and using all the principles in the books, like understanding the self-awareness, the mental self-awareness, the physical self-awareness, and so that you're doing it safely as well. And that so it's going to last for a lifetime. So it's not just a 2-week program, but it's actually a lifelong gift that he's giving you with his book. So Alan, we didn't get a ton of time here to talk about Whole Foods, and I mean you're a huge advocate of Whole Foods, as you know we are. But any tips about Whole Foods and what that means to you in the light of exercise? We talked a lot about fitness today.
I know this could sound weird coming from a personal trainer, but I'm going to be open and honest with you. Half of the battle is food. It's literally 50% of the pie of what we're trying to accomplish in all of this. Our fitness and our health and our happiness is all coming from food. If we do our food right, that's half the battle. And then we got about a 20 and a 20 of stress and sleep. So if those aren't right, we're in trouble. 10% is exercise in my model. And so you're never going to outbattle the 50% with the 10%. You're not going to outwork your diet. So always focus on your food first. It's the easiest thing for you to control. You're putting it in your mouth or you're not putting it in your mouth. You're making that decision every single day. The time you spend in the gym is minor in comparison. I mean, when I'm training someone, I have maybe 3 hours a week with them directly. and we're talking and we're doing their stuff and they're doing their exercises, and maybe they're working out beyond that, but almost no one works out more than maybe 7 hours a week total. There's 176 hours in a week. So, the rest of it matters more. And you got to put it all together to get whole health and fitness. But in a general sense, start with your food. It's the most important thing you do for yourself.
So well said. Okay, so everybody, just to recap, it's food, rest, your sleep, and your fitness. And that is what the whole health roadmap is really about. And Alan dives deep into that in his book. So thank you for touching on that, because I think that's really important, especially coming from, an expert in the fitness realm, is that a lot of people truly believe today still that they can exercise their way out of a bad diet and out of disease and out of all of that. But it does start with food. Yeah.
It does.
Well said.
Yes.
So stay tuned for future podcasts. Alan, thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm sure we're going to have another podcast, because I had about 50 other questions prepared for you,
Yes.
and so many great nuggets in that book. But I'll leave it for people to order the book, learn directly from it and from you. And yeah, it's a pleasure having you on the podcast with us.
Thank you, Nicolette. This has been awesome. Thank you.